Today we're going to build a signal box completely from scratch and in the style of the Midland Railway signal box. So here's a real signal box in the Midland style. Our box is going to be a bit different. It's going to be old and dilapidated, perhaps an era where it's just been left to rot and come to ruins. Laser cutting is new to me, so I thought the best thing to do would be to make a prototype out of cardboard. This laser is the AtomStack A5 Pro. It cost me £300. I have to say, it's a game changer for my scratch building. I'd like to give a grateful thanks to Peter Deeks from the LMS Modelling Society on Facebook. Peter sent me all of the dimensions I needed to make this wonderful model. So thank you, Peter. And this is the very reason why you build a prototype when designing a new model, because suddenly I realised I got the roof shape completely wrong for a Midland Signal Box. With the prototype tweaked, I was then ready to start making the build. I bought ratio Midland windows and I get my basswood from Mount Albert, a company in Canada. When I'm putting together a wood model like this, I use Eileen's tacky glue, which I do buy from America, but you can also buy the high-tack glue in Hobbycraft if you're in the UK. With the laser cutting, you need to make sure there's 2mm space between the head of the laser and the wood that you're going to cut. So here's the final design, drawn in a program called Inkscape. What I do then is open it in my laser software, which is Laser GRBL. Then we just let the laser do its work. It's so simple. So what I like about the laser is it's just so quick, it's absolutely accurate, no more messing about with a craft knife, and here are all my parts. The clapboard siding I use here is only 3mm thick, therefore I've got to brace the back, because in my build I use lots of moisture to create the techniques and I don't want any of the sides to warp. So here are all the parts properly braced. Here I'm cutting all of the edging strips, those red edges that the Midland signal boxes all have. The best bit, I really love adding the paint techniques. The first thing I do is stain all of the wood. Now for this particular one, I've used a filter, which is a wash from Ammo, which is really thin, and I just apply it until I've got the colour or the shade that I like. This is why it's worth doing a test. The wash dried far too light, so I've gone in with a darker Ammo wash. Happier with that darker wash. I think it gives it a really good base. I decided to use the ratio Midland window kit, and here I am just test fitting. And where they need a little bit of adjustment, a light sanding will do. With a plain grey car primer, I just give the plastic windows a good spray. The Midland boxes are a creamy colour, so I used some Vallejo paints just to mix up a colour that I thought would match. And here I'm just hardly applying any of it, with my brush really dry. I want this box to look like it's been abandoned for many years and the paint's all peeling off. But remember, if you look at old buildings, the paint near the roof where it's been protected by the eaves is quite good, so I put the paint thicker there and a bit more patchy lower down. To achieve the peeled paint look, what I do next is use a sponge with hardly any of the colour on it and just lightly sponge it all over the wood. And here are all the finished parts, painted and sponged and looking a bit old and grotty and run down, just the look I was after. And now onto those red edging strips, exactly the same technique. These bits of strip wood have been stained and now I'm just applying the Midland colour red sparingly so it looks again like peeling paint. I use a sponge as well on the windows, again very lightly, and I use 2 different shades of white so that they look like the paint's peeling. Then it's a matter of gluing the acetate to the rear of the windows and fitting them. This stage, don't worry if there's gaps between the window and the wood, because that's going to be covered with the strip wood. With the laser cutter, I've cut the first floor and I've also cut the wooden balcony that's going to go around the outside of the signal box. Next, I painted the internal floor. One of the techniques I really like is to apply isopropyl alcohol and then touch that area quite quickly afterwards with India ink, and it bleeds into the rest of the wood. Next, it's time to assemble the structure. I use tacky glue and I make sure that all the edges are dead straight. Brace the building and let it dry thoroughly before starting to fit the internal floor. Midlands Signal Box has a different type of roof structure. I decided the best thing to do was make a prototype, and then when I was happy with it, I could cut it from the laser. These slates are laser cut from paper. I decided to go with the light coloured one. These are easily applied using PVA glue. Next I fitted the external walkway, and I bought some plastic rafter tails to go on the underside. Then I fitted all the Midland red trim around the windows, and as you can see, this then filled all of the gaps that we saw earlier. I took the steps from an old ratio model and added them to the final build, and here it is. I'm really pleased with how this has turned out. It's my first ever scratch build using a laser cutter, and it's exactly how I wanted it to look. An old, dilapidated signal box, abandoned by the Midland Railway and fallen into disrepair. I really hope you've enjoyed looking at this video and finding out a bit more about how to scratch build your own models.